David Cronenberg is one of my favourite writers and directors of any genre that he dips his toes in, really. Videodrome is like one of the top 10 movies for me. I can't recommend it enough. The Fly is a masterpiece. Rabid is a film that if I explain it to someone, people will think it's the worst thing they've ever heard until they watch it. I'm excited for Crimes of the Future in September, although I know there's meant to be something that's just as disgusting as one of the scenes in this movie. So, yeah, I'm partially excited, but I'm also not. Yeah, today I'm talking about Crash, the movie that broke me, and that title was not clickbait, it really did. One of the most uncomfortable watches next to Henry, for me. Another movie that I said I'd never watch again, but here we are. Going into it, I knew the gist of it, because the whole idea of the film is like taking that feeling of you can't look away from a car crash even though you want to. The whole plot for this movie stems from something called symphorophiliac, or symphorophilia. I don't know how it's pronounced, I'm trying my best. It's basically people who get turned on by natural disasters, car crashes being one of them. And I know David Cronenberg, I know he's got messed up movies, right? I wasn't expecting what this movie was going into it. It shocked me, honestly. His depictions of car crashes are super realistic, and it being Cronenberg, they have to be violent. That's just the way with him. Like, they're going to be gory, and oh Jesus Christ, some of them in this are just rough to look at. Crash came out in 1996. It's based off the novel of the same name that came out in 1973, and they both got the same backlash because of the content that they cover and the visceral depictions of violence, which you're watching a Cronenberg movie, what do you expect? I haven't read the book, and I don't plan to after seeing this. James Spader plays James, which is perfect casting, this. The only other notable role that I could find, really, looking through his filmography and TV stuff, is he was in the Stargate movie. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this woman's last name. I think her name's Devora, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. She plays Catherine, who is James's girlfriend, and the only notable roles really for her were The Game and Seven. Since then she's done a lot of voice work, mostly in Star Wars The Old Republic, which no one plays. Elias Koteas, I think I'm pronouncing that right, who plays Vaughn, who's really like the centre for where everything starts in this movie. And before this, he was in the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. What a switch. But there's an even bigger switch. You've got Holly Hunter, who went on to play Elastigirl. So let me just give you the timeline there. She's gone from a film about getting off to car crashes to a kid's film where she's thick. Before I even start with this plot, half of this movie is just fucking. Like, I'm not even joking. When I rewatched it, I was like, how much am I going to have to cut out? Because there's so many sex scenes, like, Jesus Christ. So after about 10 minutes into the film, we actually have plot instead of just tit. James is like a director, and he's driving home, he's looking for all his notes while on a highway like an idiot, and he swerves off a lay-by, goes down and crashes into a car, and you see a man flying through the window and smashing into his window right next to him, which right off the bat I didn't expect when I saw this film the first time. I just thought, like, typical car crashes from a movie where it's like someone just bumps and then you see them like head down on the wheel. No, this dude's corpse flies through the window and lands next to him. And then you see Holly just there with a tit out in the opposite car, and you're like, why? Okay. That's the state of this movie. So I feel like they had this car crash thing that turns them on right from the get-go, because at the start they're like doing it on a balcony, watching people go past on a highway, and then after this crash, his girlfriend comes in. She's talking about cars while tossing him off underneath the hospital blankets. And it's like, have some decorum. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you could have shut the curtains or something, but no, they're just doing it in broad daylight. I don't know. This movie's gonna be weird, I'm telling you now. So James is getting examined by this guy who we assume he's a doctor, but we later find out that he's not. He's Vaughn. But yeah, he's checking out all his cuts and everything. And you can see he gets a little horny from it, which right off the bat you're like, I'm getting bad touch from this guy.
Crash victim?
Yes.
And then we also bump into Holly while she's walking away and seeing her limp and whatever. My brain's still shot from doing the Henry video, okay? Just deal with that. James wants to drive again, which... why the hell would you want to drive that soon after experiencing that? I don't understand that. Like, I can't drive, but even I would have the brain cells to be terrified of driving after that. He visits his wrecked car in a pound, I guess, and they haven't cleaned it up at all. There's still blood and everything over it, and all his images that he dropped in the crash. Holly shows up there looking for her car as well. They get talking, and eventually she asks for a lift or something because he's driving again. They mention that the traffic's gotten worse since the crash, but I feel like that's their anxieties after being in a car crash. I don't think the traffic actually got worse. I don't know, maybe I just didn't notice something. James is also fidgeting about with his seatbelt as well and ends up just taking it off entirely. And they nearly get in a crash again. Why are you not paying attention? After that you'd be like full attention on the road, but no, they managed to get in a crash almost again. And then he drops Holly off at an airport because that's where she works. And then there's another sex scene in the car. Because of course there is. So here's where we really see who Vaughn was, and you learn that he wasn't a doctor at all. Well, technically he was. I guess he was like a medical examiner, something to that effect. He has a load of jobs, I think, where he kind of finds people who've been in crashes, because in actuality he's a traffic control person or something along those lines. They're at a demonstration, and he's presenting a demonstration of James Dean's crash, and he says they don't wear protection, but they want to trust the safety of their professional drivers, which you're recreating a car crash where someone dies. Like, there's no safety involved there. You're crashing a car into another car with no helmets or anything, right? And of course it messes up, because the old man that's driving, he crashes into a car and he's injured. Vaughn seems like he's injured, but he's not. After a while he manages to crawl out from the car and then do his whole speech of like, James Dean died and became immortal. The cops break it up saying it's an illegal demonstration. Everyone disperses into a forest. James and Holly follow Vaughn into the forest to go to his car. And there's another scene of them being horny. Like, they're driving home to his place and getting touched up on the side, and you're just like, can you not hold it back for 5 minutes? You've just been in a car crash. Oh wait, that's the plot of the movie. Jesus Christ. So we're back at Vaughn's garage now, and they take Seagrave up and put him in a chair because he's got a concussion from the crash that he did. Vaughn's talking to him about recreating a crash from someone called Jayne Mansfield, and I had to look this up because I was curious, is this like a real thing? And oh boy, I was in for a shock, I'll tell you that. So to give you a bit of background for what this is, because it comes up later in the plot actually, Jayne Mansfield was like a Marilyn Monroe type who sort of basically tried to imitate Marilyn Monroe, and they had like a sort of rivalry. One day they were driving, it was her 3 children were in the back of the car, there were 2 people in the front along with Jayne, and what happened was they collided with the back of a semi-truck, and it took the top of the car off. The 2 people in the front died, and Jayne was decapitated. And I've seen the photos. I didn't mean to see the photos, but I did. And then, to add insult to injury, later on, they're talking about these crashes, and the photos from the crash are there. And bearing in mind, given the time, it was 1996, or I guess it would have been 1995 when they were filming. And the internet was still very new. And I guess Cronenberg, being the man that he is, probably had copies of the photos, or he had to find a newspaper outlet that had copies of them still, which is very messed up. James is getting shown these photos from a book that Vaughn has, and it's all these collections of car crashes, and then you find out he's been following Holly and James and takes a photo of them when they were doing stuff in the airport. And Vaughn explains that his biggest fantasy is to drive a crash car that someone's died in. That's his whole big end game with his whatever the name of the philia thing is that he has. David Cronenberg can't write normal sex scenes. Who would have guessed? Yeah, this is like the worst writing in this entire bit of the film, and it's the only bit that's got bad writing. But she's like, have you seen his anus? Do you know what it smells like? I wonder what it feels like. Did you know semen is salty sometimes? It's like, David, you've probably had sex before, mate. You can do better than this. Oh yeah, and then we cut to another sex scene. Vaughn explains to James that car crashes to him are like his form of sexual liberation, which I'm never going to understand that. I'm sorry, I'm just not. As they're driving, he's always banging his car into stuff just for fun, or I guess to turn him on, I don't know. A little later on, what's the fucking name? Oh my god. Catherine's waiting to take James home, but the cops are questioning Vaughn, and he's really anxious because they think that he's involved in a pedestrian killing. And James explains that he's not into that. He's purely into the crashes, not hurting anyone except from himself. Yeah, he's a bit shaken up. So James offers to drive him, and they end up all just going in his car for a little joyride. And they come across a car crash, and Vaughn is taking pictures of it like it's some kind of, I don't know, like photo shoot type thing. They come across one big crash, and they all get out to have a look. I don't know how he's getting away with taking photos. Well, surely they'd be like, what are you doing? Get away from it, you know? And here we learn that Seagrave has recreated the Mansfield crash without Vaughn, and he's really upset by that. So I think the plan for him is to get him and James to recreate it, but that doesn't happen. A really disgusting scene as well, but I do like the gore here, but it really affected me with this scene, just seeing like the depiction of a car crash done really well. I mean, you got one guy in the front in a limo who's pretty banged up. He's dead, obviously. It's not really banged up if he's dead. They cut open a door. Somehow one woman survived in the back of the limo, and then he goes over and they cut open this door, and this woman's head is attached to the door because it's been decapitated, obviously, like the Mansfield thing. That didn't actually happen with her though in real life, but you know. And he sees Seagrave, and he gets kind of upset that he's done it without him, which I guess is their fantasy. I can understand why, because they've always been partners or something. I guess that's implied. Woo, another sex scene in a car wash. Anyway, Catherine's done something to her leg. Obviously in between that, she's got in a crash. This is the scene that really just, like, I didn't want Cronenberg to go there, but you know he's going to, because he has to break the normal reality for everyone. And there's a wound that's shaped like a vagina, and James pokes said wound. No normal person looks at a wound and goes like, kind of want to smash, you know? Like, are you kidding me? Like, I love Cronenberg, but that scene just gave me such a visceral reaction that made me gag and nearly throw up. And like, you don't actually see him like literally putting it in the wound, but you can tell, and then he starts thrusting in it, and yeah. So Vaughn is getting this medical tattoo, and I just don't understand cars. Maybe you'd understand it if you know about cars, but he gets some tattoo on his chest, and says it's self-fulfilling prophecy for some reason. And right after that, James and him are having gay sex. And he's licking the tattoo, and as someone who has tattoos, that must be disgusting. Like, because this would be all scabby skin and like blood and just antibacterial stuff, and he's licking that, and it's going into that. Tattoos are basically scar tissue that's going into the second layer of skin, and him licking that is just so disgusting to me, and it bothered me so much, almost as much as the wound bit. After that, what was even weirder is James gets out of the car, goes and gets into a wrecked car around the corner, and Vaughn crashes into it a couple times and then drives off. And I guess James just sleeps there. I don't really know what the point of it was, so I'll be honest. Catherine goes out to a new car and it's damaged, and James works out straight away that Vaughn's destroyed it. And I guarantee his plan is to try and kill them on the highway that they're driving on now. And instead, he screams like a dinosaur. Flies off the highway and he dies, obviously, because it's like a burning inferno of his car. It's another sex scene, okay? There's so many in this, like, Jesus Christ. It's Holly and Catherine who visit that same scrapyard, I guess, where the cars were at the beginning, and they do the fuck in Vaughn's car. And then James and her buy the car after. So James is essentially fulfilling Vaughn's wish to drive a crash car that someone died in. He's fulfilling his fantasy, and he's getting a real thrill off it, as you can tell. The ending really makes me uncomfortable, and it's very questionable. Like, I love Cronenberg, but yeah, I didn't know what to make of this ending. So he's driving the crash car, and he's trying to make Catherine crash as well. And he succeeds in that. She flies off the highway, much like he did at the start, but her car's completely wrecked, and she's crawling out of it. It looks like she's dead. James drags her out of the car and just says,
"Maybe the next one, darling."
And he starts making out with her, and then I assume it's him doing the, again, but like, it feels so disgusting because she's nearly dead and they're doing that, and I just I mean what I say for this title when I say this movie broke me. It really did. Like, I get the idea, but I just can't get into it. It's so uncomfortable to watch, and that's the whole idea with Cronenberg, is to challenge the viewer, but this one just I can't watch it anymore. I watched it twice. That's as much as I'm going to watch it because it will stay in my head forever. This is another movie where I don't really know if I can recommend it. It's more, if you're curious, then you should watch it, but otherwise I can't really recommend it. If you like Cronenberg stuff, I think you should watch it purely for like going down a list and seeing how he progresses as a creator. As I said, I like the idea of it, but the execution of it is so jarring to me and uncomfortable and not what I expected. Like, as I said in the beginning, I was expecting like just crashes, like your standard ones, not full-on proper depictions of car crashes that are just gory and disgusting. And yeah, I don't know, I'm worn out. I've had to rethink Crash as well as bloody Henry Portrait of a Killer at the same time, I shouldn't have to say this, but don't fuck someone's wound. It's not worth it.